Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're back. This is August the 16th, so this will be album number 16. So they're the only two that match. Everywhere else, the day is different. The day is either smaller than the album ranking or larger than the album ranking. This is the only one where they match perfectly. So day 16, album number 16 in my four favorite album runs, or my favorite four album runs, that's more correctly to say. And, it's been going good. It's been getting extremely tough. Yesterday's Beatles one could have easily switched with this one. I actually debated this for a fair bit of time trying to decide if I like the Beatle run more than this one. The problem was that I went back in history to when these four albums came out. I was around for the four of them, and they had a huge impact on me. The Beatles albums haven't had as much of an impact on me as these four, so I gave this one just a nudge, just by a hair. And so we're going to get into it. So before we get into it, just so you know, what I'm doing is I'm picking four albums that are in a run that go chronologically in the studio album run from their beginning to their end, or from whenever they came out to whenever they finish. So we've got an excellent one today. This one will please Ben, I'm sure. It's Queen. Yep. Queen is a band that early on were one of the four bands that kind of tore me away from Kiss, and I'm forever grateful for that. Not that there's anything wrong with Kiss, but I had very little outside reaction to other bands other than Kiss from about 75 through to about 78, mid 78, around that time period. Yes, I did listen to other songs by other bands, but really it was pretty much dominated by Kiss. These were one of the four bands: Rush, Sabbath, Styx, Queen, were the four bands that kind of began me getting away, and they began me to get away from Kiss and get into more rock. So they opened the door for the rest of everybody else to get in. And Queen was one of the two leaders. Styx and Queen were the two big bands that kind of pushed me out the door. So I still have a kind of a soft spot for them, although in recent years, well, maybe not so much in recent years, but sometime in the late teen part of this century, they went through a very big renaissance, and people were making, to me, a bigger deal than it should have been. But that's just my own opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm correct. So we're going to start with this one, A Night at the Opera. It's funny how this one and the next one, this one's A Night at the Opera, but it's white. The other one's A Day at the Races, but it's black. It's kind of weird. But anyways, both of these are titles from the Marx Brothers films. Great titles to their movies, so they took these two and did them. You can see all the kind of different stuff going on here. Very, very different from their previous albums. So now you're getting into a kind of if you want, a rhapsody of different stuff going on here. Absolutely killer. So this album came out in 75. It's is this their fifth studio album? I think it might be their fifth. It's either their fourth or their fifth studio album. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure Ben will know for sure, though. I think it's Queen, Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, and the other one that I'm seeing but can't picture the name. I think this was fifth, though, so I'm going to go with that. So fifth. So this album is proliferated with some of the Queen's biggest songs, some of their best hits, and some of their most versatile music. So Death on Two Legs, very different song than stuff from before. I think this is a killer tune, one of my first favorite songs by them. Lazing on a Sunday afternoon, absolutely fantastic. Kind of a weird song though. Afternoon, another good little bit. I'm in Love with My Car. This is a very outlier. I think this was sung by, is it Taylor or is it Deacon, one of the two. I can't remember which one, but one of those two sang this song. I want to say it was Taylor, but I'm probably wrong. You're My Best Friend. This is one of my favorite Queen songs of all time. I absolutely killer song. It was a huge hit on the radio as well. 39, Good Sweet Lady. Seaside Rendezvous, kind of a quirky outlying, almost vaudeville type track. They like to do those kind of things. Lots of vocals on this as well. Love of My Life. This is Freddie Mercury showing off how absolutely incredible of a voice that man had. Maybe the best rock vocalist of all time. Good Company, fantastic. Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't need any introduction, nor it needs any description. Absolutely a killer track in every way, shape, and form. Maybe overplayed too much, but you can't. Even though it's not the song's fault that people play it way too much, but it's absolutely one of the great rhapsodies of all time. And yeah, so you got a couple of on this particular, you got a couple of off bonus tracks, mixed reviews from different people doing this song as well. But absolutely, this is a killer song. I missed the Prophet song there when I was looking at it too. So absolutely good. Roy Thomas Baker and Queen did this album. So I believe this is their 5th album, Begins the Run. So I talked quite a bit there, longer than any other video so far. This is such a good. Then you get Day at the Races, which I absolutely love. This is an outlier for me. I think it's an underappreciated album. People always cite Night at the Opera more than this one, but this one is equally as good, maybe better in some ways. Tie Your Mother Down, really kind of a heavy track that I like. Take My Breath Away. This is another kind of same as the Love of My Life, very similar track, absolutely killer. Millionaire Waltz, great. You and I, fantastic. Somebody to Love, one of their great tracks, one of my favorite, right up there. White Man, maybe the hardest track at this point on this album, absolutely killer. Deep Cut should be recognized more than it is. And then Tio Torrente and Drowse, both very good tracks. I love the album cover here as well. Very good. Dark. It's a dark album, even though it's the Day at the Races. So absolutely killer. The second of 2 Marx Brother album covers and titles that they chose. This is probably my favorite Queen album. Because it's my first one, had the biggest impact on me, brought this band to me. I absolutely love this album. Of course, it has We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions, which are the 2 mega hits. We Are the Champions, one of the great anthem and sports songs of all time. Sheer Heart Attack, which is coincidentally the title of one of their earlier albums, is here on this album. A different song, very fantastic. All Dead, All Dead is kind of a quirky song. Again, Queen liked to dwell in those quirky outlying songs that were different, and that's what makes them special. Spread Your Wings, fantastic. Fight from the Inside. This is a deep cut that I think is very, very underrated song. Fight from the Inside, maybe my favorite track on this album. It's got that heavy part to it, a grinding kind of guitar sound, and I think it just comes across as a heavy song. Get Down, Make Love, another great track. Sleep on the Sidewalk, this is kind of another of those outliers that could be easily a kind of a bluesy tune. Who Needs You, It's Late. It's Late was one of my favorite tracks on this album early on. And The Melancholy Blues, another really blues song. This was the 3rd album in the run. I think it's their 7th studio album. And then the last album to finish off, just recently purchased for this particular episode. I wanted to have it. I was out today and saw it and wanted to have it for the episode. I've had this album in the past. I now have it again. Very underrated album. I think when people think of the great Queen albums, this one isn't often talked about, but they should. It's a fantastic album. Mustafa, great song. Of course, the rock radio friendly super song, Fat Bottom Girls, great. Bicycle Race, another great one. If You Can't Beat Them, another great one. This is Deacon's song. Let Me Entertain You, Dead on Time, I'm Only 7 Days. This one has like 13 tracks on it, which is kind of unusual for Queen. A lot of shorter stuff going on here, so they're moving away from those kind of epic, long, and more progressive sounds by the time they get to this album, which came out in '78. So they were already moving away from that sound, Leaving Home Ain't Easy, Don't Stop Me Now, and more of that jazz. So this is more of a jazzy album, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a jazz album, but it's definitely a little bit more poppy than the other three albums, but some great tunes on this, some killer guitar playing here, and some of Queen's better songs as well. So Queen Jazz ends it off. It's the 8th studio album, so we'll just reiterate them all. So you've got A Night at the Opera starting this off, their 5th studio album. A Day at the Races, their 6th studio album, is the 2nd one in the run. The 3rd one in the run, my favorite, News of the World. This is the 7th album in this one. This one actually has some cool kind of progressive sounds. And I think the progressive sound starts to ebb now, and they go into jazz, which is a fantastic album. Lots of, a little bit more of everything going on here, but a little bit less of the progressive stuff. But this is their 8th studio album and the 4th one in the run. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of my favorite 4 album runs featuring Queen, from A Day at the Race, from A Night at the Opera to jazz and in between. Fantastic albums. I hope you like that. Please hit the like and subscribe, and comments are in the comment section. Don't forget the notification bell. We will be back tomorrow for another episode of my favorite 4 album runs for the month of August. Take care.